Okay, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jim Whale, and this is episode number 47 of the Sports Consiglieres Podcast. Along with me is my co-host, Jerry. Jerry, how you doing today on this fine Thursday?
Oh, excellent, Jimmy. Excellent. Hopefully the weather breaks.
Okay, yeah.
East Coast weather, that is.
East Coast weather. So our next guest for episode number 47, we had a pre-production meeting. We talked about moving a little bit into baseball with Ichiro getting into the Hall of Fame. We figured a lot of the history of the Japanese baseball player has been not really been highlighted. So our next guest is a author, filmmaker, historian, and a visionary founder of the Nisei Baseball Research Project, Kerry Yo Nakagawa. Kerry, thank you for joining us. It's a real honor. It looks like you did everything and really enjoyed the movie, and you gave us a lot of material for this episode. So I appreciate you coming on the podcast today.
Oh, thank you, Jim. Thank you, Jerry. And so, Jim, you're the Vito Corleone, and Jerry's the Tom Hagen.
It's more like, I think it's more morphing into I'm Sonny and then Jerry's Michael. So eventually he's going to kill me off. So.
Yeah. Well, at least Jimmy didn't say he's Fredo, so we're ahead of the game.
So I don't know. We just threw, Jerry and I are co-workers. Just to give a little history on ourselves, our co-worker. I was doing this by myself. I had a couple co-workers of mine doing podcasts. One does one on golf, only golf links. It's Manny Garcia, and the other one does fantasy football. So they said, you know what, you should do one. A light bulb went off. I started doing it by myself, but I was talking to Jerry one day, and Jerry and I, we talked about sports all the time when we worked. He's since retired. I'm stupid enough. I'm still working. So we just kind of, we kind of had the show, but that's our little history, but I don't want to take too much away from you because you're very accomplished. And I learned a lot from just the material you gave us. So, but let's just start with Ichiro Suzuki,
sure,
playing in Japan, and now we came over to the United States, 3,000 hitter. Just what was the transfer, I guess, from Japan to U.S. baseball? Because I guess you follow both sides of the Pacific.
Sure. Well, Jim and Jerry, to me, Ichiro Suzuki is just an incredible, not only a baseball player, but for us to have our exhibit at Safeco Field, this was back in 2003, and we set it up in the, kind of the foyer of the outside, inside the stadium, but I was asked to come down to the cage before the game and just watch batting practice, and Ichiro was in there. He took 10 BP pitches and hit 8 home runs and 1 into the second deck. Yeah. And, he's my size, right? And for him to unload on the baseball like that, I just wish he would have entered some of the home run derbies, during the All-Star game. But, Ichiro for us, to me, he's just not only going to be a Hall of Famer soon, but, when he brings that dynamic of being a middle infielder or outfielder, that size-wise, to see a guy his size have unleashed with so much power, so much speed. And prior to that, most players from Japan were only considered as pitchers. And so for him to come over as a utility player and really impact the game so much with his hitting and his, just his acrobatics and his mark that he made to, baseball in a major league level, especially at his size, because I think about our ancestors, the Issei and Nisei ball players that were American born. They had the tools, they had the 5 tools, they had the passion, but, they never got an opportunity to play in the major leagues. They were banned in the 20s and 30s. And so to see players like Ichiro and Otani, Nomo, prior to Ichiro, it's just for us, and seeing our Japanese American ball players, we feel that the players of today, like Otani and Ichiro, Nomo and Matsui, and the list goes on, they're really their ancestral godfathers. They're standing on the shoulders of these great players that should have been able to play at a major league level, much like the Negro Leagues and Latinos. So it's fantastic to see players getting their recognition today. And I know in spirit, these Issei and Nisei ball players are very proud of their accomplishments and what they could have been as well.
And I guess for me, the research it gave me, just the Japanese baseball in itself. I mean, I guess ignorantly, I just figured that, it just started with the war. The Japanese saw the servicemen playing baseball and they just picked it up. But I mean, it goes back to like the 1870s. I guess a professor went over there and introduced it. And then I guess American Japanese baseball was 1899. So it's really been inbred in the culture, and they really, on a lot of the material you gave us, the 9 players playing at one, it kind of resonated with the Japanese people.
Exactly. Like you mentioned 1872 with Horace Wilson, Jim. But, we have an exhibit and we just got back from Japan. We were at the Tokyo Sky Tree and the Dodgers played the Cubs end of March. So our exhibit was there for 12 days at the Tokyo Sky Tree, over 450,000 visitors, about 38,000 a day. And, we even had Tokyo University with their PhD students there. And one of the questions, not just from, the academic standpoint, but many of the visitors thought that Japanese American baseball started with Masanori Murakami, and that was in 1964. So for them to be educated on the teams from the Seattle Asahi going to Japan as early as 1914, and then 1918 and 21. My uncle and the Fresno Nisei team went in 1924, 1927, and 1937. So we had so many pre-war players and teams that went to Japan, not only Japan, but Korea and Manchukuo, China. So players of today that are biracial Asian or fully Asian that are playing in Major League Baseball, which practically every roster in MLB today has an Asian ball player on it. For us, it's just so amazing to think that, people in Japan and most of the visitors never knew our history started way before 1964. So it was a great way to educate, to entertain, and hopefully inspire the fans of Japan with our history as well.
I'll pass this along to Jerry. I don't want to hog up too much of my episodes. I know he's always but Jerry, why don't you go ahead and
hey, Kerry, I just want to throw some flowers at you. I saw it when we're doing the research. You look just as good now as you're doing that baseball card, pal. I mean, I don't see much aging going on there. I gotta get your secret. But again, I just want to echo what Jimmy was saying. When we had the opportunity to have you on and doing the research, I always think it's important, I actually think it's fascinating when you tie in culture to sports, because I feel when you could tie culture into sports, more people relate. They find it more relatable. So when you started this project, and I know you're well traveled, you had multiple projects, if you will, books, documentaries, but ultimately your number one goal was to educate and promote, Japanese culture. Who really assisted you when the project was in its infancy stages? Like who gave you encouragement, and who was a big shoulder for you to lean on?
Wow. That's a great question, Jerry. I think it started with my youth. I think I sent you guys that famous photo, October 29th, 1927, with my Uncle Johnny, Kenichi Zenimura, with Lou Gehrig, Babe Ruth, Fred Yoshikawa, Harvey Iwata. And that photo was in our hallway. I grew up in a small farm town, and it was sitting in our hallway on the wall. And I remember thinking, man, how many kids can say that their uncle, my dad's brother, played on Lou Gehrig's team, and they thundered Babe Ruth All-Stars 13-3 that day. And so it really kind of started with that, Jerry and Jim, with that image. And then as the years went by, and, I was producing entertainment talk show, and also doing an ABC affiliate, working with different, shows. My son was just with Brandon Zenimura, who was in that photo. You'll see Kenichi Zenimura, who was just about 5 foot tall and was the father of Japanese American baseball in California. His great grandson was on the same team with my son, and they were accepting their Little League trophies. And I remember seeing Zenimura and Nakagawa on the back of their jerseys, thinking, man, these fourth generation kids have no clue about, the history of our families and how it impacted, players. They built this bridge across the Pacific pre-war. And so I really didn't want that dynamic to not surface. So I told my wife, I said, I got to do something, a documentary, an exhibit, a book, so that these fourth generation and later generations of all diverse ethnicities should hear about. Because at the time, it was at the Baseball Hall of Fame at Cooperstown, the All-American girls, the Negro Leagues, the Latinos in baseball was well documented. But our history, our marginalized, invisible, and kind of forgotten pre-war Issei and Nisei ball players never got a chance to kind of showcase what their skills were. And so this was an opportunity, Jerry and Jim, to kind of get the dynamic going. It started with a small exhibit at the Fresno Art Museum. 1,000 people came to the first day showing. And then it ended up at Cooperstown, the Baseball Hall of Fame in Japan in 1999. And from there, it went to a book. We wanted to make sure that all the images, as many as we could, kind of got cataloged. And so to have a local Hall of Famer, Tom Seaver, of course, with the Mets, he did the introduction for us. My godpapa, Noriyuki Pat Morita, also wrote, the foreword and introduction. Well, actually, it was Tom that wrote the foreword. Pat did the introduction. Then it went to a couple curriculums, a documentary I did, and Pat Morita, you guys probably remember him as Mr. Miyagi. Helped me write it.
And Happy Days. We're all enough to remember
Happy Days, icon.
That's right. And he was our narrator too, Jerry. So that was fantastic to have him as our on-camera host, narrator, baseball fan and lover. And a kind of a sidebar too, that I used to go around with Pat at Major League Baseball games, the Dodgers a few times, the San Francisco Giants, Arizona Diamondbacks, Sacramento Kings. And his thing was to sing the national anthem. And he had a little blues riff to it. And so it was, fantastic to have Pat with our doc. And then I knew there was a film. So we got the key people, the synergy, synchronicity, got Barry Rosenbush, Desmond Nakano involved. And we produced a film called American Pastime, which, Jimmy made a comment that you got to see it. So our uncle was a radio man in World War II for Senator Danny Inouye. And so that's why we wanted to pay homage and tribute to the 442 soldiers that helped save 200 Texans, and they had 800 casualties, and they saved this lost battalion. And so now it's evolved to the exhibit, to have so many great people involved with us, to have our exhibit at the All-Star game with the Dodgers, and then it went to the Seattle All-Star game last year at Texas. This year it'll be Atlanta. So
yeah, you gave us that too. So it's going to be in Atlanta, July 12th to the 15th. So on your shameless plugs you gave us. But I'll get to that at the end of the episode. But I guess one thing, you gave us American Pastime, which was a lot of interesting things about that. But like just the Japanese history, like what drew, like for me, Irish, obviously. Famine and British oppression kind of gave us an opportunity, came to the United States, obviously opportunity, but for the Japanese immigrant, what brought them to California and then to kind of have a better life? What was going on in Japan that immigrated here to the U.S.?
Well, I look at my grandfather, Jim. He was in Hiroshima or Hakushima, Hiroshima, and then a lot of his economics, so he went to the big island of Hawaii and was in a small sugarcane plantation, the Kaiwiki sugarcane plantation. And he was putting wood in the boiler room. And he also on Sundays got to play baseball representing their plantation with other plantation teams. And then in 1886, he came to California. And that's where, my Uncle Johnny was born in Ola, which was a small village near Hilo. And then my dad was born in 1905 in a small town called Bowles. But baseball was their kind of thread. My grandfather played on the plantation team. My uncle Johnny was considered the Shohei Ohtani of the 20s and 30s. My dad threw a 9-inning no-hitter for his high school team. I was a shortstop. My son was a catcher. And so baseball's been threaded throughout the DNAs in our family. And so I think a lot of the Issei, even in school in Japan, they had woodblock prints that had baseball as part of their curriculum. So I think much like most immigrants, like you mentioned, you have your Irish background. I think all immigrants, when they came to the United States, baseball was very black and white. There was no gray zone. No matter what your faith is, what your culture or the color of your skin, it didn't matter. Inside the lines, it's black and white. If you could play at a high level, you will gain immediate respect. Outside the lines, it got a little blurrier. But I used to think that, with the research that we did, one Issei said that putting on a baseball uniform was like putting on the American flag. But as much research as we've done, I think it went deeper than that. I think all immigrants that came to the U.S. wanted to prove that they had the 5 tools. They were the best ball players. And so they were represented on the fields as Italians, as Irish, Japanese Americans, Blacks, Latinos. And so that was a beautiful part of the game is, you didn't have to speak English. You didn't have to, your culture, heritage, and your customs didn't matter. On the baseball field, if you could play it at a high level, then you'll gain immediate respect. And I think as almost an international sport as it is today, that still stands pretty much in today's world as well.
Well, and I think a lot of the internment camps, your film American Pastime, I think if anybody watching this episode is definitely depicts what the Japanese American had to go through, because I think it was interesting to me to see how first off, how quick they just got rounded up, and how quick that it was exclusion order number 33, I guess, and then how quick the Japanese Americans had to do it. They had businesses, and they all had to move. Not only I just thought it was Utah, but it was also Arizona and Arkansas. So a lot of these Japanese Americans had to uproot their whole life, their businesses and everything else. And then I found it interesting in the film, a lot of them didn't know about the money. They basically bought the cash with them because they didn't know if the money was, if the banks were going to seize their assets. So just talk a little bit about your film. It's called American Pastime, and then I think you alluded to before you're executive producer on it.
Well, thank you, Jim and Jerry. I mean, American Pastime for me was to be able to be involved with it and share and pay tribute to the 442. These were segregated all Japanese American unit that, as I mentioned, our Uncle John T. Suzuki was Senator Inoue's radio man. So they were liberating all these towns in Italy. And then they got the order to go to the Lost Battalion in Brières, France, and free our soldiers that were stuck on top of the mountain. The Germans had taken the middle of the mountain and had 50 caliber machine guns, not letting anybody get up the hill. So to work on a film to pay homage to the 442, they became the most decorated in the history of World War II. And our exhibit, Jim, was at the Texas Rangers All-Star game recently, and we put a proclamation with a 442 baseball team, and the proclamation was signed by Governor Conley. And after the war, any 442 soldier was considered an honorary Texan because they under Texans. So you see how culture and just not baseball. We liked with a baseball, we like to hook both genders, men and women, because they can relate to it. But like an onion, as you unravel it, you can get into more serious and deeper issues. And so to have a film like American Pastime, share not only our baseball history during World War II and the incarceration camps, but also these brave teenagers that volunteered out of these camps to fight for our country, even though they were imprisoning their own families, was pretty special. And then to have my son be the first baseman, I was the shortstop on the Topaz team. Even our daughter was in one of the dance scenes. that was pretty special to have our family involved with this film as well.
Well, it was, and then I guess the motto was "Go for broke." So it was just like that was the motto of 442, "Go for broke." And
That's
then
right.
you also just talk a little bit about your diamonds in the rough. That you talked a little bit about that with Pat Morita, and then just let me see. I lost Jerry here, so just for yourself, you're still coaching baseball. I guess you're doing it in Fresno, and then Fresno. I was out there, I guess, a couple of years ago in the parks, and it was hot. So I mean, how's it living out in Fresno?
Well, I was born in a small farm town, Jim, called Fowler, which is about 10 miles south of Fresno. And, Fresno's always been a hotbed for baseball. I mean, when I grew up in our little farm town, all the street urchins, all we did was play baseball and then take a lunch break, come back and play almost till it got dark. And so, when we have, great Hall of Famers like, Tom Seaver and Frank Chance, who, again, both of them went to Fresno High School. And, we also have in our valley, it was the Twilight League. So Fresno has always been kind of the hotbed for major leaguers and barnstorming tours, college players that get into the majors. So I'm sorry you had to face that heat, that Syrian heat that we had.
Yeah. So, hey, listen, it was worth it. I guess Northern California I mean, everything's California to get LA, but Northern California is really a beautiful part of the state. It's definitely a beautiful part of the state. But you got involved with if I'm saying this right, Nisei Baseball Research Project. So just talk a little bit how you started that, and I think that's how I found you on the Baseball Hall of Fame. And then I reached out to you, and you were gracious enough to come on the show. So just talk a little bit about the Nisei Baseball Research Project and how you started it, and also what's it doing today.
Well, 26 years ago, Jim, we started our NBRP, our Nisei Baseball Research Project. And, the mission is to bring awareness and education of Japanese American incarceration, but through the prism of baseball. And so we started our nonprofit, and thank goodness my wife has been so supportive over these 26 years, our kids too. Because I just felt this anointment, kind of this epiphany when I saw our son, accepting his championship Little League trophy, and Brandon, his teammate, not knowing the history of our families. And so to be able to start this nonprofit and to still be in existence 26 years later, we always knew that we wanted to kind of share this legacy of our Issei and Nisei ball players, what they did, and they built this bridge across the Pacific. And to be able to kind of crusade and lobby for Major League Baseball to recognize our pre-war players, and hopefully one day at the Baseball Hall of Fame to have a permanent exhibit, much like the Pride and the Passion of the Negro Leagues, the Latinos in baseball, and the All-American Girls. Our exhibit was there in 1998, but just temporary. It was only there for 6 months. But, at the time, we didn't have Shohei Ohtani's, or we didn't have, the players that you have today, Imanaga from Chicago, and, the list goes on and on. If we did back then, maybe, there would have been more serious consideration. But we're very appreciative. This July, the Yaku baseball exhibit will open at Cooperstown, and it's going to be there for 5 years. And family friends like Paul Yonomina, that's part of it. Don Nomura, that brought Hideo Nomo to baseball in the 90s to the Dodgers. Josh Rawitch, who's the president of the Baseball Hall of Fame, has done just an amazing job with his team to put this Yaku baseball together. And it's 4 pillars, Jim and Jerry. It's basically teams that went from the U.S. to Japan, teams that came from Japan to the U.S., players that went to Japan to play professionally, and of course, the legacy players of today that play in Major League Baseball. So I think all fans around this country, when they see this Yaku baseball, hopefully they'll again be very inspired, and it'll be educational for sure. And we have a small section on Japanese American baseball with the exhibit as well.
Yeah, so it's going to be the exhibit's going to be in Cooperstown. It's going to be in Ichiro's indoctrination weekend. So that's another part of your cheat sheet you gave me. So you gave me a lot of material for the show. But I know, like in the 80s, there was a lot of collusion going on with some of the American players, and they went over to Japan to play. And some of them became successful. What names in Japan are synonymous with being established over Japan that American players that if you mention their name to the casual fan, they would know who that person is?
Well, for sure, like I think of legacy players like Wally Yonamine. He was from Hawaii, and 1947, he's playing for the San Francisco 49ers, going both ways as a running back and a defensive back. And then Lefty O'Doul hired him to play for the San Francisco Seals. And so Lefty told him, it might take a long time, Wally, to get into Major League Baseball. Why don't you go to Japan and show them an American style, which, Wally did, and helped him win 4 world championships. And then he coached and managed for 26 more years with the Chunichi Dragons. So Wally Yonamine would be a name that people would definitely remember. Warren Cromartie from
from the Expos,
yeah. He certainly is on the minds of many generations to Japan. Randy Bass, who broke Sadahara O's home run record. He just got into the Japan Baseball Hall of Fame. But I reversed that too, a lot. Like in Japan, we have a Fresno guy. His name was Fiber Hirayama, played for the Hiroshima Carps. And then after he played 10 years and was an all-star for the Carps, he helped Cesar Geronimo in the Dominican Republic coach the Hiroshima Carp Academy in the Dominican. And he saw this one kid who had lanky arms, a strong arm, but recommended him to the Hiroshima Carp major league team as a scout and coach. And they accepted him. And that was Alfonso Soriano. So he plays 2 years with the Carps, then goes to the Yankees and becomes an all-star, and then, of course, with the Cubs. So that's why it's bridge both ways, Jim.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I guess Alfonso Soriano he learned how to hit the breaking ball over Japan. I mean, because being a Yankee fan, I saw a lot of them, but like he definitely had the skills, but he would just wait on that breaking ball, and then he said he learned that just from playing in Japan.
And you know who else too? Cecil Fielder too.
Oh yeah. So
and he got so many curveballs because they didn't want to throw a fastball by him. He learned how to hit a curveball. Comes back, and I think he hit 50 home runs.
I think he was the first one when he came back with the Tigers, and then the Giants the Yankees ended up trading for him, and he was on the '96 team when they won. So I think he was 51. He was like the first. Kind of invigorated the team, invigorated baseball again. So sure. I forgot about Cecil Fielder too. So, but just changing gears a little bit, just going back to Cooperstown. Like, how did you did Cooperstown reach out to you? Did you reach out to them through your research project? How did you get the relationship with Cooperstown and the Hall of Fame?
Well, Jim, started in 1996. The San Francisco Giants, we pitched to them that, we have 49 pre-war Nisei ball players that, we would love to pay tribute to. And then our godpapa, Pat Morita, will sing the national anthem. And so, the Giants gave us that opportunity, and it was an incredible, priceless event. I mean, it was a packed stadium. We honored 49 pre-war players. And so our exhibit at the time was at the Sacramento State Capitol Museum. And, we had, so many different politicians, see the exhibit and learn about, much like the people in Japan, and never knew that it started so early. And so Jim Costa, one of the congressmen, let us take the Senate floor because he knew one of our ideas was try and get our exhibit to the Baseball Hall of Fame at Cooperstown. It passed 117-0.
Oh, wow.
Jerry, when do you see bipartisan in today's world,
Not in today's world, no way.
right? And they all voted that yes, this exhibit should go to the Baseball Hall of Fame. So at the time, it was Donald Marr who was the president. They accepted our exhibit, and within about 6 months, we were there at the museum, and what a special and priceless event that was, because we also took about 15 pre-war players to the Hall of Fame, which they were recognized. And for most of them, it was very moving for them to finally in their career. Some of them had major league ability, and some were even offered a contract, like Henry Honda. He was offered a contract at the beginning of December with the Cleveland Indians, and on December 7th, Japan bombs Pearl Harbor. So basically, Henry's contract got torn up. He never got to play at a major league level. They followed him through the camp life because he ended up in Arizona at an incarceration camp. But he had 4 kids, and by the time he got out of the camp 4 years later, he threw his arm out during the competitive games in the camp, and the Brooklyn Dodgers wanted to give him a tryout, but Henry had to pass on it. So to have Henry there at the Baseball Hall of Fame, and so many media wanted to ask him about how he felt about that day, and he goes, I love baseball pre-war. I loved it after the war. I still love it today, and to be honored with my peers here at the Hall of Fame is the greatest day of my life. And so I reminded Henry, I said, well, what about your kids and grandkids? Today's the greatest day of my life.
No kidding. Well, that's saying something. So yeah,
it was pretty special, and to have great ball players like that with us, it was just amazing. So to come back this July, with the exhibit, Yaku Baseball is going to be another priceless situation, Jim.
And then just some other shameless plugs you had. Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris killed you in a film. So how did that come about? I mean, listen, you're a man of many talent. I mean, listen, writer, producer, historian. But then Chuck Norris killed you. What movie was that? Was that in?
Well, it was a film. This was back in 1980. Jim and Jerry. It was called An Eye for an Eye, and Chuck surrounded himself with great actors. Christopher Lee was in it. So many great actors. Richard Roundtree from Shaft.
Oh yeah, sure.
I was an actor and stunt fighter on the film, and it's ironic because I got my black belt from Luther Reagan. Luther Reagan got his black belt from Chuck Norris. Chuck got his in Korea. So when I worked on this film, I'll just never forget, being able to, work with Chuck, mention, our connection through Luther, and the director, liked me as a stunt fighter actor. So Chuck killed me actually 6 different times in different wars. And as I mentioned, Jim and Jerry, I come from a real small farm town, and most of my homies I've known since I was in kindergarten, they could care less if I won an Oscar or an Emmy. All they want to talk about is how Chuck Norris killed me 6 different times.
Yeah. Well, listen, he's our generation. I mean, he was bigger. He was big. He was big.
Absolutely.
Yeah. He's still on these infomercials. He's still looking good. So.
Yeah. And then what's the other thing? Like Chuck, when the Hulk gets really mad, he turns into Chuck Norris. Or Chuck Norris was in all the Star Wars films. He was the Force. Right?
Yeah. But the next great player coming from out of Japan, who do you think that Americans should keep their eye on? I mean, there was a lot of interest with Ohtani. He ended up signing with Anaheim or LA Angels, and then signed. We thought we were going to get him at the Yankees. Obviously, that didn't happen. But one thing I will say, just watching Hideki Irabu pitch in the 90s. Japanese fans do travel. They do. They will follow their stars.
Sure.
So just talk about a little bit about the Japanese fans coming to the States and watch and following their stars here. So,
well, a perfect example, Jim and Jerry, is the Major League Baseball game, which was a regular season game between the Cubs and the and the Dodgers, and the Cubs had their all-stars, Imanaga, the left-handed pitcher, Suzuki, their home run hitter, and of course Otani and Sasaki and Yamamoto were pitching for Tokyo Giants. For the Dodgers. But the Tokyo Dome holds 50,000 fans. When they announced the Dodgers were going to play the Cubs in their backyard, so to speak, it was sold out immediately, and 400,000 on the waiting list. Wow. I understand through friends with the Dodgers that, a lot of fans will come to Dodger Stadium with their carry-ons because they'll come straight from the airport, just like you mentioned, Jim, straight to the stadiums because they want to see their heroes, right? Yeah. So it was no question. I knew that the fandom was going to be incredible in Japan to see their hometown heroes. Who's coming up in the future? I think one thing that a lot of people don't realize that Sasaki with the Dodgers, he's their third pitching ace.
Yeah, sure.
His grandfather and his parents were swept away by the tsunami earthquake in 2011 when he was, I think, only in 8th grade. And
I didn't even know that. Wow.
So every time he gets out onto that mound, and he helped the World Baseball Classic Japan Samurai team win the World Baseball Classic in the last, tournament. But he pitches for his dad and his mom and his grandfather. And so, I think once he gets settled into MLB standards, I think he's going to be a great pitcher. And there's so many, Jim, it's hard to, and Jerry, keep count because from Little League, as we watch the Little League World Series, Japan is always in the finals, it seems like. Then you get to the college level, they got great players. There's this one kid that's playing for Stanford University named Sasaki right now that they say is going to go, really probably in the first rounds too, as a hitter. But he bypassed going from college in Japan to come to the United States and then turn pro. Most players from Japan play college, then they get drafted. They play, 8 years as a pro in the NPB, then they come over to the major leagues. So at every level, Little League, high school, I don't know if you've heard of their Koshien tournament. 50,000 fans come out for 2 weeks to watch their high school tournament all-stars play. And, those are much like Otani played and many other players of today played in high school. Then they go to college, then they go to pros. So I think at every level, they just reload, new superstars will come out. Some will stay. Some will want to test their skills, at the highest level, at an MLB level here. But it's just exciting to see so many players and so many fans really respond to what's happening.
Yeah, well, listen, Kerry, I can't thank you enough for that. And then for the Japanese players, is it a badge of honor to play in Japan and then come over, or do you find that more players are looking to make the jump earlier? Because you find out sometimes, and with hockey, some of the players would rather play in their home country and then come over to NHL later on once they're established. But what's the Japanese baseball player? What's their thinking now? I mean, I never really heard any Japanese player really. I don't follow college baseball that closely anymore, but I never heard of somebody coming over and playing college from Japan. So what's the kind of route now for the younger player in Japan?
I think the younger players, it's a matter of adjusting to culture, customs, heritage. You're going to lose that when you leave, Japan and their nest, and they're being so comfortable, with their hometown fans. Their, the money isn't even an issue anymore. Money is quite lucrative, either whether you play in Asia or here in the States. I think what they have to decide on is if they want to challenge themselves in terms of the culture. It's obviously going to be different nutrition, foods, different stadiums, people. But like this kid Sasaki that's playing for Stanford University, he found a little loophole. He really wanted to play at a college level, and had various visits, Stanford was most outstanding for him. And then he'll go straight into the draft, much kind of like Nomo and Don Nomura figured out that if Nomo retires, he can come over and play in the States, not have to, play his 8 years. And so I think what you'll see in the future is players that are willing to challenge themselves and not be worried so much about the cultural aspects of being here in the States playing. We're going to see a lot more great players, and it's beautiful to see this bridge across the Pacific flow both ways now.
Yeah, it definitely is. So, listen, Kerry, I can't thank you enough, and I thank you for sending us the material for the show. And thank you for coming on. I know you're on West Coast time, and sometimes things get. But for yourself, you're going to be, like I said prior, you're going to be at the All-Star Game Fan Fest July 12th and July 15th, and the Yaku Baseball exhibit will be in Cooperstown July 25th and 27th for the Ichiro indoctrination weekend. So induction weekend, excuse me. But for yourself, are you going to be there?
Oh yeah,
you're going to be in person.
Yeah, with the All-Star Games, Jim and Jerry, I love to be there and just take the questions, and we have a life-size photo of the Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, and the Nisei ball players, and my uncle's on the end next to Lou Gehrig. And I got kind of emotional even in Japan when I was giving a tour with NHK, and I look over and my uncle's my size smiling down on me, and to have this kind of support and knowing that they're with us in spirit. They might not be with us physically, but their divine spirit's definitely with us. So I like to be at the All-Star Game games to just kind of share, because most people see that photo and think that these players are from Japan. I said, no, these guys are from Fresno, and this is my dad's brother. And it changes their whole perspective, right? And so to be also at Cooperstown, it's been quite some time since I've been to the museum, and to share that experience with, again, some of our artifacts with our exhibit. And it's going to be a special July for sure. So thank you.
Yeah, it's going to be a busy July, but also you gave me the AmericanInnings.org Hall of Famer broadcaster Marty Laurie site, and you also have Bill Staples' blog spot. He's an author and historian on Negro Leagues and Nisei Leagues. So he gave me that. And also you could find you on Facebook at Nisei Baseball Research Project. So, Kerry, I can't thank you enough. I guess the only thing you have left on your repertoire is probably Nobel Peace Prize, because, you seem like you did everything else. But do you have anything else planned coming up as far as movies or Chuck Norris, Eye for an Eye 2? Is that coming out, or is that
I'd love to. I'm working on a couple of film projects, but that's in the writing process. And, I just love the fact that Jim and Jerry, that as a storyteller, which I am, you guys are, what we lay down as our passion projects, they become immortalized. And so long after our gone, your podcasts, my books, documentary films, hopefully will be around to educate more diverse audiences as they come up the pike. And that's the blessing of being a storyteller and being in the business that we are, because, we're not limited by our age, and only by our passion and our imagination. So I hope keep this up.
Very, very true. Listen, it's been a great episode, Kerry. Thank you for your time, but I can't thank you enough. And then good luck on your adventure. We're going to try to do something in the future. I have your contact information.
Sure.
So we're trying to do a live show, but I got to get my producer involved. So I don't know, but he's a busy guy. So if you like wrestling, Dave's a wrestler. So if you're like wrestling,
nice.
But with that being said, Kerry, I can't thank you enough. This is episode number 47 of Sports Consiglieres Podcast. This was produced by Chop Sports Media, Dave Sturcio. Look forward to more interesting topics. And Kerry, don't be a stranger. We'll when you win that Nobel Peace Prize, make sure you thank Jimmy and Jerry from Sports Consiglieres Podcast. But I really appreciate your time. And thank you for the education. Thanks for the material and everything else. It was really eye-opening experience for us and for baseball fans. So I'll try to post this on social media. And where can people find you if they watch this episode and they want to reach out and find out more?
Oh, well, you could go to our Facebook page, Nisei Baseball Research Project. That's NISEI, or www.niseibaseball.com. And Jerry, Jim, Dave, thank you so much for the opportunity, and just to share again a little bit of our pioneers and our history is so valuable and priceless.
Well, it's great as a baseball fan, but thanks, Kerry, and good luck on these events coming up, and really appreciate everything you did. But thank you very much. But have a good afternoon, everybody. And this is episode number 47. It's in the can, as they say. Look for I 2. We got to get Chuck Norris to get it out there. Yeah.